Yes, we will continue with the C3, C4 and chem plant. Here CO2 fixation take place, as I said previously, that is take place. Most of the plant are C3 plants, Then C4 plant, that includes most of the tropical grasses like corn and sugarcane. Whereas in chem plant, most of the succulent plants, those having juicy material in between, for example, cactus, pineapple, agave, or now what will happen in CO2 fixations in C3 plant? It fixes carbon in Kelvin cycle, attach CO2 to RUBP. Okay. Now in case of C4 plant, it fixes carbon in cytoplasm that attach to CO2 plus PEP. Now in chem plant, that fixed carbon at night only fix in organic molecules. Now the enzyme is also different between C3, C4 and chem plant. Generally chem plant and C4 plant have an enzyme PEP, okay, ACE and C3 Rubisco. For the conservation of the energy, most efficient energy method is utilized in the C3 plant. Here is C4 plant halfway between these two. I am about conservation of energy or efficient method of energy. Best water conservation is observed in chem plants. Lost water through photorespiration in comparison to C4 plant, it is higher one, and loss is less water in case of C4 plant than the C3, and very least amount of water loss is found in chem plant. Now we will see the above three figures that indicates how C4 enters with the CO2. Here the requirement for C3 plant is mesophyll cell. C4 plant required two cells, that is mesophyll and bundle cell, whereas in Kelvin cycle at night and day both are differ but require mesophyll cells. What will happen? CO2 to glucose. That conversion require this. So I am taking much more concentration between these three with their differences. Now C3 and C4 plant. C3 plant uses C3 cycle or Kelvin cycle for dark reaction of photosynthesis. In case of C4 plant uses C4 or H-Slake pathway for dark reaction of photosynthesis. Here you will find both dark reaction of photosynthesis pathways are different. Here is Kelvin cycle for dark reaction, here is H-Slake pathways for. Example, as I said, C3 plant wheat, rye, oat, rice, cotton, sunflower, and in algae, chlorella also, that is C3 plant. C4 plant, I will tell you, maize, sugarcane, sorghum, amaranthus. Okay. MS, SA, that is C4 plant. First stable product in C3 cycle is phosphoglyceric acid, and first stable product in C4 cycle is oxaloacetic acid, that is 4 carbon. Okay. Now C3 plant are cool season plant, commonly seen in cool environment and wet area. Whereas in case of C4 plant are warm season plant commonly seen in dry areas or arid areas or where the desert is there. Okay. Majority of plants on earth are C3 plant. 90% of green plants. And C4 plants, that is remaining one, means 5%. Okay. So this is about differences. We will continue with that. Okay. Now, temperature condition, as I said in previous development, that is required less than 30. Here is 45 degree temperature, and C3 plant are abundant in temperate condition. Here C4 plant are abundant in tropical climate. Leaves of C3 do not have a crans anatomy. Leaves C4 having a crans anatomy. C3 plant, the both bundles itself do not contain chloroplast. In C4 plant, bundles itself contain chloroplast. In C3, carbon dioxide fixation take place only at one place. In C4 plant, carbon dioxide fixation take place twice in mesophyll and second in bundles itself. C3 possesses only one CO2 and C4 plant possesses two acceptors. Okay. Atmospheric CO2 acceptor in C3 plant in RUBP. Here is CO2 acceptor. In C4 plant is PP. No secondary CO2 acceptor in C3 plant. Here secondary acceptor CO2 in C4 plant is RUBP. In C3 plant, the complete step of dark reaction take place in the mesophyll cells. Here in C4 plant, mesophyll will only do the initial step of C4 cycle. Okay, and subsequently it is carried out in the bundles itself. Chloroplast, monomorphic or single types, or usually granum in C3, usually granule types. Here is dimorphic in C4, and those in bundles is large agranule, and those in mesophyll are small granum or granules. Chloroplasts do not contain peripheral reticulums in the C3 plants, whereas in C4 chloroplasts do have a peripheral reticulum. Same we continue. The optimum temperature C3 plant is very low. Optimum temperature for proper growth of or photosynthesis in C4 plant is higher. C3 plant are less efficient. C4 are more efficient in case of photosynthetic energy fixations. Photorespiration rate is very high in C3 and altogether absent in C4 plant. That C3 plant requires higher amount of carbon fixation composition point CO2. That is, here is C4 plant. In the previous lecture I tell the 10 ppm up to 10 ppm, but certain literature shows 2 to 5 ppm or 0 ppm that can carbon dioxide compensation point is low. Okay, here is carbon dioxide compensation point is higher in C3, low in C4. C3 plant require optimum temperature, that is 18 to 24 degrees centigrade. Here is you will find 32, 45, 55 degree, up to 55 degree temperature is there. But you have to write only a 45 degree centigrade because there are some literature source. So growth of C3 plant begins when soil temperature reaches 4 to 7 degrees. Here in C4, when the soil temperature reaches 16 to 21. Okay, 21, not 210. Okay. And lastly, I will complete with this all 6. C3 plant are less efficient in temperature increase. C4 more efficient when temperature increase. C3 produce higher percentage of crude protein than C4. Then C4 plant produce fewer amount of crude protein than the C3. CO2 fixation is low in C3 plant. CO2 fixation is comparatively faster in C4 plants. The rate of translocation of end product of photosynthesis very low in C3 plant. End product of photosynthesis is very high in C4 plant. The optimum temperature for growth is low to high in C3. Here it reverse. The optimum temperature growth is high. Okay. So most of the this C3 evolves much older, or C4 much older. That you have to remember with this. C3 plant is evolved about 2.5 billion years ago, whereas in case of C4 plant is comparatively recent in origin and originated about 12 million years ago. Okay, thank you.